Hey guys, you probably won't survive this one without muttering "no way" at least twice, because it starts in the kind of quiet parking lot where you'd expect pigeons and coffee steam. Not the moment that would make a state rethink its police training from scratch. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I want to see where you're listening from. The sun hasn't burned through the cloud layer yet, so the light is thin and cold, brushing the roofs of a few old pickups like watered-down paint. Near a shuttered convenience store, a man leans on his pale gray sedan, hands in pockets, eyes on the metal roll-up door. He's not scrolling a phone, not pacing, not even humming. He's just there, still as a chess piece that hasn't been moved yet. If statues had coffee breaks, this would be it. Two patrol officers roll, upon older with a beard that says, "I've been here too long." The other younger, with eyes darting like a squirrel sizing up 3 bird feeders. From 20 paces, the younger mutters to his partner about one of those early morning drifters, as if standing quietly were some fringe new crime. Historians still argue whether loitering while vertical was ever on the books, but judging by his tone, he's already decided this guy's a problem. They approach. The younger one's voice is sharp. "What are you doing here?" The man says simply, "Waiting for the store to open." The exchange is calm, but you can almost hear the younger officer's internal monologue screaming, "That's not the answer I wanted." He pushes for ID. The man refuses politely, reminding him this is a public place, and he's causing no disturbance. That's when the air shifts, hands brush the cuffs. The older officer sips his coffee like he's seen this movie before, and within seconds, the metal clicks around the man's wrists. As they walk him toward the cruiser, the younger mutters about people thinking they're invisible. The man doesn't flinch. He says, with a gaze sharp enough to cut through badge polish, "When you put cuffs on me, you better be sure you have a right to." 10 minutes later, he's in holding. What no one in that station realizes is that they've just cuffed the judge who'll soon decide their future. By the time the court date arrives, the officers' names are printed neatly on the docket below the one name they never expected to see in bold above theirs. The room smells faintly of old paper and overworked air conditioning, the kind of scent you only get in places where justice has been pending for decades. The man they'd pulled from that parking lot walks in, not in a gray shirt, but in black robes, sitting on the bench with the same calm they mistook for defiance. The defense side is stiff, eyes flicking between notes and the floor, like maybe if they don't look up, the timeline will reverse. But then the body cam footage rolls. The speakers fill with that early morning wind, the clipped questions, the man's steady answers. And there at Issa, a casual line from one of the officers, "These folks would be better off keeping their mouths shut." It's not shouted, not even angry, just the kind of quiet poison that drips into everyday exchanges. Historians still argue whether bias seeps more through volume or tone. But here, tone is all it takes. The judge doesn't raise his voice when he pauses the playback. Words don't reflect a moment, they reflect a pattern of thought. It lands heavier than any gavel bang. The prosecutor doesn't need to say much. The footage speaks louder than any closing argument. The jury, technically just observers, hear shift in their seats. Even the clerk stops typing for a beat, pen hovering like it's afraid to miss the next sentence. He reads out the gaps in the arrest report. No threat, no disturbance, no charges, just slow to respond and suspicious silence. In the front row, a few law students jot notes like they're catching rare fish. The officers sit in a row, each hearing the slow dismantling of a shield they thought would never crack. The verdict, when it comes, isn't flashy permanent removal from any law enforcement role, referral to civil court for further review. No shouting, no personal digs, just the steady precision of someone who knows the law better than anyone in the room and wields it without needing to swing. When it's over, they file out. One officer mutters to no one in particular, "We didn't know who he was." It's caught by a camera mic, the words tinny and brittle. The judge hears it as he passes, turns just enough to say, "That's what you need to relearn." And in that single sentence, the power dynamic flips forever. The fallout doesn't stay in the courtroom, it ripples into training manuals, coffee break debates, and a few very awkward police academy lectures. Within weeks, a new mandatory module appears: conditional power, boundaries, and ethics in law enforcement. Day 1 of class starts with the very same body cam, clipped gray shirt man, quiet parking lot, polite refusals. The cadets watch in silence. The room thick with the smell of whiteboard markers and a faint whiff of cafeteria eggs wafting through the vents. The instructor doesn't narrate. He just freezes the frame where the cuff's close and asks, "At what point did their authority go off track?" One cadet says, when they asked with bias in their tone. Another admits, "I used to think the quieter someone was, the guiltier they were." Historians still argue whether moments like this can truly shift a culture or just make better footnotes. But here, the shift is visible. The pens are moving without anyone assigning notes. Outside the academy, the public carries a quieter question. Would this have mattered if he weren't a judge? At a small bookstore's community night, a 13-year-old asks his mom if the man got released because he was the boss of those guys. She answers, no, because someone recorded it. The room doesn't laugh. No one rushes to correct her. Because deep down, everyone knows the camera is what dragged this story out of an anonymous report into the daylight. Meanwhile, Lucian Carver, still on the bench, declines every interview, award, or Person of the Year nod. When a civil rights group offers to put his statue outside the police academy, he sends a single-line email back. "If they build a statue of me, it might make people think you have to be somebody to be treated right." That line circulates on law school corkboards more than any formal ruling he's written. It's become the sort of quote that sticks in your brain when you're about to judge someone in the first 7 seconds. And maybe that's the legacy, not the viral clip, not the gavel drop, but the uncomfortable truth that justice shouldn't hinge on titles, uniforms, or how well someone fits the neighborhood backdrop. Because in the end, the verdict stripped away more than badge it peeled back the idea that power can skip the step of simply seeing the person in front of you. And so the noise fades, courtroom chairs pushed in, signs outside taken down, the clip archived under 100 other headlines. The air in the city settles back into its usual hum, though for some, that morning in the parking lot still plays in the background like a muted reel. You can picture him stepping out of the station, light catching the edge of his collar, not rushing, not slowing, just moving forward in a way that made bystanders lean in without knowing why. In the academy lecture halls, the frozen frame of those cuffs still sparks quiet debates, the kind that trail into the parking lot long after class. In living rooms, the question, what if he hadn't been a judge, still lingers between news segments and coffee sips. It's not loud anymore, but it doesn't have to be. Some lessons work best when they whisper, especially the ones about looking twice before deciding who belongs. And somewhere, maybe on another gray morning, another officer will walk up to another quiet figure and feel that instinct to press harder, only to remember the footage, the verdict, the way the story ended without a victory lap. Maybe they'll pause, ask the question differently, and listen to the answer all the way through. That's not a guarantee. Nothing about human behavior ever is. But it's a chance, and in the slow work of changing how we see each other, a chance is worth holding on to. So you can let the image fade, now the parking lot empty, store door rolled open, sun finally warm on the pavement. No more cuffs, no more questions, just space enough for someone to stand without being asked to explain their right to be there.